Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone, and we are continuing with cricket. India legend Sachin Tendulkar believes the current team's strong play in the opening four-test series against host Australia is due to their suppression of the #1 ranked test batsman Steve Smith. India beat the Aussies by 8 wickets in the second test at the MCG on Tuesday to square the series at 1-1. Smith has tallied scores of 1 not out, 0 and 8 in 4 innings. Tendulkar is crediting off-spinner Ravi Ashwin with keeping Smith quiet. Ashwin has bowled 23 balls to Smith, dismissing him twice. This is what Sachin Tendulkar says, the little master. In the first test, Smith got out to an arm ball, or you can call it a straighter one, which Ashwin releases differently. An off-spinner bowls a straighter one which skids off the surface when the fingers are not on the top of the ball. In the second test, it was not a slider, but Ashwin's fingers were on top of the ball, which produced bounce and turn. Steve Smith played a normal flick to a regulation off break that any batsman does by instinct, and the fielder was brilliantly placed there. It was a well-planned ball and wicket by Ashwin. Both are class players, so someone is going to have a better day, and so far Ashwin has come out the winner in the first 2 tests. Now, India's batting will be strengthened for the third test in Sydney on the 6th of January, Caribbean time, with the return of Rohit Sharma. Sharma joined the team in Melbourne on Wednesday after completing his 2-week quarantine in Sydney. His return is expected to mitigate the absence of skipper Virat Kohli, who is back in India on paternity leave. Meanwhile, Australia have dropped the opener Joe Burns and have included David Warner and Will Pucovski in their third test squad. So, George, both India and Australia are strengthened for this third test, which, by the way, will be live on SportsMax on the evening of the 6th of January at 6:30, 7:30 Eastern Caribbean time. And all to play for here because it's a 4-test series. So what happens in the third test with the series locked at 1-1 is pivotal.
Yeah, you could call it like tennis and say it's a best of 2 now.
Yes.
So the thing is this, India's batting will be strengthened, no doubt, by the inclusion of Rohit Sharma. Will Pucovski, there are certain things about his record that are impressive, and there are other things which leave huge question marks. So there are people who say that he's the next big thing. I'll have to see him prove that before I join that particular chorus. But the return of David Warner will no doubt strengthen Australia. They don't have any, it's one thing to not have any consistency at the top. But when the batsmen aren't dangerous, it also doesn't help the team. And neither of the Australian openers have been dangerous. And along with not making any runs, Burns, even if he's there, he's not making the bowlers think, adjust their bowling plans. Well, for the fielding team to adjust its bowling plans, for the bowler to adjust lying length, deliver everything else. He's not causing them problems. David Warner is all that and more. So David Warner's return will no doubt strengthen Australia. But Sachin Tendulkar is right, Lance. They have put the Indian sign on Steve Smith. He looks as if he doesn't know how to bat, causing Shane Warne to say that, boy, his technique is wrong.
It's flawed.
It's flawed. All of a sudden,
yes.
The technique that has vaulted him to the top of the world batting charts is flawed. But Steve Smith needs, this, my friend, is why I, who never saw Sir Viv in full flow. By the time I was conscious of what he was doing, he was an old player and then he was gone. So I can't argue on equal footing with those who say Sir Viv was the best, especially if they too saw the man I regard as the best ever, B.C. Lara. The thing with B.C. Lara, which I always use in my argument to separate him from other players, and I'm applying this to Steve Smith now, even in his most wretched run of form, you can know that he's out of form going into a test series. He is still good for a massive 100. He is still good for an epic innings. I don't see that in Steve Smith yet, and there are so many batsmen now that people are rating to their high heavens who they have to be in a very good run of form to produce something special. Steve Smith now needs to show that, all right, I belong in that group of the greats like Sir Viv, like B.C. Lara, and the others who are in that group alongside them. I'm in bad form, but when the chips are down, I'm going to give you a 180, or I'm going to give you a 200, I'm going to give you a big century, I'm going to give you something to put my stamp on the series, even if I revert to type after that.
Yeah, the thing with Steve Smith, George, is that his numbers are very, very compelling. If you look at his numbers alone, then that is reason enough to put him in the category that you just mentioned. But if you look at him bat, it's a completely different story. You're not going to look at Steve Smith bat and say he's as good as Brian Lara based on the sort of efficiency.
The eye test, Lance.
Yes, well, the eye test and the optics. So Steve Smith's compelling numbers is what drives him to have the sort of rating that he has at the moment. But he's not in form. You mentioned about David Warner earlier on and what he can add to the top of the Australian batting order. He's coming from an injury. I'm not sure if Dave Warner will be 100% fit.
Which cricketer is? Which cricketer is?
Yeah, well, I'm saying that to say, I'm saying that to say that apart from his physical readiness, he will be lacking match sharpness.
Yes.
So match sharpness is something that is critical for an opening batsman to have, no matter how good he is. So I think the Aussies here are going to be very worried, even if Warner gets back and passes the fitness test and makes his way into the 11. These are two world-class teams, George, and I can't wait to see this third test.
The thing is this, you say the thing about David Warner and not being sure how sharp he will be coming off the injury, which is a valid point to raise. The thing is this, though, his characteristics tell you what his approach will be to batting. He'll not be cautious. He'll not try to scratch around. Even if he ends up scratching around, that will not be his intended approach to the batting. And this is what I'm saying about batsmen at the top of the order who go out and try to dictate terms. And I'll give you an example. You take Craig Brathwaite, our opener, West Indies opener. What does he do at the top of the innings to make the bowler have to think, have to adjust? Does he do anything like that to disrupt the plans that have been laid in the dressing room for him? No. David Warner does that constantly. It may not come off, but if it does, it'll be special. And that's the threat that he brings. The dynamics of him being there are going to be so much different. It should help Australia one way. It may coax a very good performance from Steve Smith. Who knows? Warner's presence.
Yeah, the two obviously add strength to the team when they are in form. And an informed Steve Smith and an informed Dave Warner obviously make an Australia team a lot better.
Are there any other world-class batsmen in this Australia lineup? No.
I would say no.
Well, you would say no. No, it was a resounding no.
There are some okay players there,
yes.
Labuschagne and company, but nothing to write home about.
And that's why some of the experts before this series were saying that's why India will win, because they say India has a bowling attack. Man for man, you may say the Aussies shade it. Yes. Some may say so, some may differ.
It's close.
But it's very close. And the bowling is world class. But there's only one batting lineup if Steve Smith doesn't fire and if Warner doesn't fire. We're world class because the Indians have the quality in there. Rahane, well, Kohli's gone, so that equalizes things a bit. But you think that the Indians have the edge in the batting department, and that may prove to be the difference, as we spoke about the century that Ajinkya Rahane struck in that second test, which effectively helped to push his team over the line.
I don't think anyone would suggest reasonably that Australia's batting lineup is as good as India's, even with Warner and Steve Smith there. When you look at the top six and you put a measuring stick on the top six, India would have to be better.
Well,
and the Aussies is so dependent, of course, on Warner and Smith getting off.
Even though in the India top six, well, those players aren't there anymore, as we mentioned Prithvi Shaw, but the top six that the Indians started this series with from the first test, and I was mentioning to you and Wayne that the first six, three of the first six batsmen have less than 20 tests among them, and that's significant, So the inexperience there, but even with the inexperience, the Aussie quality beyond the Smith and Warner, it's ordinary. There's no quality there. There are players promising, but nothing proven, nothing world class.
Yeah, and the determination, because that is one of the things that would have propelled Australia to the successes that they've had in the past couple of decades, because they apply themselves and they are so scared and terrified of losing that they will themselves to give performances that are sometimes a little above what they're reasonably or technically capable of. So that is part of the Aussies' strength, the mental strength to grind in a situation and get a result. So you have people like Travis Head, and Labuschagne and so on, not, as far as I'm concerned, world-class batsmen, but batsmen who are able, in a given situation, to apply themselves and propel their team into a position of success.
January 6th, must-watch TV, India, Australia, SportsMax. Yeah? It's best cricket, test cricket, home of champions.